Hi, and welcome to a Rooted in Reflection pre recorded video where we are highlighting the epigenetic impact of Marianismo. This is a framework that I've researched and been embodying myself, and I'm presenting it today. My name is Cynthia Perez, and I am a first gen Chicana social worker. And I say that because this work is so important to me, and I really wanted to have this recording available for anyone that wants to come back to this and is really like untangling their own impact in their epigenetics of Marianismo. And just to be clear, Marianismo, because it is a mother wound, really, and we're going to go into what it is in this video and how it was formed, but it's a mother wound, but we all carry them. If and specifically, I'm talking about the mother wound of marginalized people who were specifically colonized by Spanish colonization or European colonization that forced Catholicism. So this is very niche. Of course, there's mother wounds, but I wanted to really emphasize Marianismo, something for us that we're like, what is this feeling? It's so specific. And so this impacted what we call like Latino Americans, people of Central America, the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, places where they enforced Spanish Catholicism and their way of being. And so we are feeling the after effects of this colonization. And sometimes we think that this is us. But this is kind of talking about the epigenetic impact of colonization through the lens of the mother wound of Marianismo. So this is for all genders. This is a non-binary topic. However, it highlights the mother and the woman, the womb holder in this colonized view. So when I say woman or womb holder or femme, I am talking about how the colonized woman has had to move, but I also want us to remember that this absolutely impacts the way that she raised her children and the gender and the way that she embodied her colonized perception and safety. Okay. So moving forward, it's just a pleasure to have this conversation. And I really invite you to just kind of look at what comes up for you in your body when you think about this. So first in this, we're going to talk about what is Marianismo? Like, why are we highlighting Marianismo? What does this feel like? How do I know if it's Marianismo? So this is a definition rooted in Catholicism and colonialism. It is a social construct created out of a caste system of gender and status. When women were taught to be like the Virgin Mary and sacrifice for the man in the community. This shifted the natural flow of energy in their bodies to survive colonialism. This has become energy that became how we are with others and how we see the world. This has become a value, which after it becomes a value, it now becomes a belief, which has become a behavior embedded in us, a way that we show up. And it has made women physically sick to hold all of this without acknowledging what's there. So the biggest reason why we're talking about Marianismo through this lens is because, first of all, not a lot of people talk about it if we don't talk about it, right? We can't be waiting for the data to recognize something that our bones know. But also, the last sentence is what got me, is that it has made women, mothers, physically sick to hold all this in without acknowledging. And at the same time, it makes their children sick. It makes the people that they care for around them sick because they are now projecting these difficult to live by values onto their children or their partners or their friendships, their relational behaviors, right? And so Marianismo, while it has resources, and we're going to get into that, it's rooted in colonialism. So it's going to be limiting and it's going to be through virtue of expectations that are passed down to us of what to do. So that's what Marianismo is. It's a word, but it's actually taken out of the Virgin Mary. So when the Spanish came to colonize parts of Latino America that were already native land, for example, when they came to what is now Mexico, part of Turtle Island, right? They came through Cozumel Beach, through Yucatan, through Veracruz, and they projected by force, violence, by deceit or by colonization, you have to commit to Catholicism. So indigenous people that lived there, the Yucatec Maya or the Aztecs, you either submit to Catholicism or you die. And there are many sites in Mexico, for example, where you were killed and it was a genocide. And over 80% of Mayans were killed in a Spanish conquest, right? In the Inquisition, they call it, right? Whereas either are you going to be Catholic and get baptized right now, or are you going to face your death? Because they believed that indigenous medicine was brujeria, was bad, was dark. And so many, this is a point of our roots, whether we had to, and no shame, right, out of protection and survival, form ourselves as women to Marianismo, which means we are now supposed to be like the Virgin Mary, embody her values and her grace and her really way of showing up without harm, available for everyone. I go into this a lot with my platicas, my continuing education courses. This is so much to cover. So this is just a snippet, but by all means, I encourage, having more of these conversations and looking up the history of Marianismo. That is really telling us that we should be like the Virgin Mary as women. We should show up for everybody, put ourselves last, and wear a smile while doing it, just like the Virgin Mary. It should be an honor for us to be of service for everyone. And actually, this is tricky because now it's really committing our spirit to this tie of being for others. And that was a way that colonialism really was able to trap our spirit into this way of being, which eventually really changed our epigenetic fibers and our nervous system. Okay. So what is my Marianismo? So that is something I created. I did not create the word Marianismo. You can Google it. It's been around for about 40 years, that word. But my Marianismo, when I say my Marianismo, is really just owning it, claiming it like, wow, instead of shaming what comes up for me when I'm feeling left out or jealous or scared, if I claim it as, oh, that's my Marianismo showing up, it's allowed me to give it a face, to give it an experience and not just shame it. And so when I say that's my Marianismo, it's my way of really labeling the legacy burdens within me. And so just calling this root feeling my Marianismo, it's allowing me to be curious as to like, where does this come from? What is the root of this? So I created spaces. I have 6-week groups. I have CEU courses. I have one-to-one coaching on really just unpacking what is my Marianismo? What is your Marianismo? What does it look like? What kind of Marianismo was passed down to me as modeled by the mother that I had or the tias that raised me or my grandmother, right? How deep does this Marianismo go? And really just honoring what is within us and also what we might want to tease out as our resources. Okay. So this conversation is really about the duality of Marianismo. The duality of Marianismo, because we want to acknowledge that Marianismo is not just when we are not being in our highest self, when we are rageful or jealous. Yes, that can be Marianismo, acting from a place of fear or scarcity. But there's also duality in Marianismo. And I want us to highlight that when I'm feeling like I don't know what to do, I'm stuck, I feel like I made a mistake and I don't know how to get back on track. And maybe feelings of guilt, shame, judgment come up. I want you to think about the duality of it. Like, okay, how was I in my resource and how am I in my legacy burdens? So Marianismo has the duality. It is me when I'm restless and I'm worrying that over something that I really can't control. But it's also my Marianismo when I shake it off. I dance, I make a really good meal, and then I go outside for a walk and I'm able to chat with my neighbors in a really embodied way. It's both. Do you see? It's the resource that I'm able to pull out my magic, but it's also the epigenetic trauma of my people. Okay. So Marianismo represents the duality that womb holders have and the pressure that we have to be agreeable, to be helpful, to be all these facets. And it's important for us to think, okay, but we also have a bag of gems. I haven't been in that bag yet. let's start to bring out that back and be in our duality. We don't, if we're always just in the doing and the stressing, we're not really experiencing all of our legacy resources. So these legacy burdens, they're rooted in survival and due to oppression, and they push conformity and they push social constructs to protect the lineage. It's trying to be helpful, but it is also pushing, social norms, colonial expectations, and that's going to leave us feeling tired, depleted, maybe resentful, maybe rageful. And then it activates our epigenetics. If we're doing this now to please people, to be accepted, and we're doing this out of a fear, a survival fear that if we don't, we won't be accepted, which could be very scary, right? It could be life or death, like in the beginning days of colonization. That can trigger our epigenetics to go, hey, psst, 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 right? Our cells start to open up through our epigenetics, and it goes, hey, you need to fight or flight. You need to leave. This is not a good situation. Or we need to fight. We need to be snippy. We need to argue. We need to be a roadblock for this. Or we need to be friendly. We need to fawn, and we need to say yes. We need to be a people pleaser, because that is how we're going to get out of this. This is our survival. That's what our epigenetics kind of start to go, hey, protection. And I want us to think about how when those epigenetics of our Marianismo start to get unlocked because of historical trauma, how can we soothe it and go, wow, this is not all mine. I was about to just go into automatic autopilot, but now I see that this is deeper than me. How can we really balance the duality of Marianismo in a way that honors our truest self? So I just want to recap on Marianismo and sacred work. I really have been led here by my ancestors, by allowing myself to be led, but also just listening to my inner knowing, listening to my body and what feels good and what hasn't been feeling good. There was so long, I would say about 37 years of my life, that I was doing things that I was taught, and it still wasn't good enough. I still would be shaming myself, like self-punitive. And I realized, like, this doesn't feel good, but yet this is my norm. And so really being able to see in my body, like, what doesn't feel good, and being able to pause. Something I write here is, I remember sitting on the bluffs in Long Beach with my good friend Carla, who I met in grad school. And so we've known each other for about 17 years now. I'm so lucky. And she was telling me how she got certified as a yoga teacher. She's also a therapist, and she has a history, her own history with immigration, right? And so she told me it's really hard to do yoga in spaces where I don't always feel safe. So I became a yoga teacher. And so she starts to teach me mindfulness, and I can feel uncomfortable at the beginning. But once I hear Carla and the way she starts to explain it from her perspective and her approach, my body started to soften. I started to go, that makes sense. And it really was seeing that when I feel safe, I can receive the new information. And I started practicing with her. And I started to see that in my meditation, whether it was me meditating with plants in movement, dancing, stomping, swaying, rocking, drumming, whether it was me reading stuff, whether it was washing my hands while I do the dishes and like really just focusing on the water, all these meditative practices were allowing me to see the colors within me, to allow me to see what my energy was truly like, and then say, whoa, that's not my energy. And I was even able to unlock times where this was not mine. So I really hope that for us. And this is just really sacred work. I really feel called in this time to share it and have more conversations around it, because if we don't, who will? And so in some of the other work I present, you can look at my website, rootedinreflection.org, and you can find I have some conversations on how we can harness our Marianismo through our chi, our ki, and our prana life force energy. So that's really fascinating. But we also have ways within us, inner resourcing, that we can use to really lead ourselves through the sacred work. Okay, so if you're thinking, Marianismo, what is this? What are you talking about? We're going to go over real quick legacy burdens and legacy resources. In the recording of Unburdening Myself, we go over this in depth, but this is just a little a little teaser to be like, oh, I check, I identify or I know someone. So, what are some legacy burdens of Marianismo? I'm glad you asked. This is actually taken from a text when my friend, one of my good friends, Sophia, was like, hey, what would you say are some legacy resources of Marianismo? And I was like, you know what? I'm sorry if I've only been talking about the legacy burdens. Like, shame on me. Let let me also talk about the good, right? The duality. So we had exchanged these texts. So some of the legacy burdens of Marianismo, right? We talk about the burdens, gender roles create distance between mothers and their children, right? If I have been taught that girls have to wear dresses and sit with their legs crossed and they have to cook for their husbands and they marry men, right? If it's a cis het ideology, I'm going to push all of this onto my children. If they're boys, I'm going to push what kind of gender I feel they should have that is holy and sacred and in alignment with my commitment of Marianismo, right? To raise good children in the eye of God, and to be like the Virgin Mary and really like guide the community into this spiritual pillar. This is the colonial framework, right? But now I'm distancing my kids with their gender roles, right? I might push more feminine things onto my daughter, even though I'm telling her who she is. Maybe that's not how she or they identify. Also, the sons pushing them what is machismo, right? Showing my daughter what Marianismo is, but also showing my sons what is machismo. The other thing is this might distance us if we have children who don't identify as cisgender, as heterosexual. This might make us shame them or reject them or make us even give a sense of rejection to our children, which might make them hide their true selves. So this is already creating legacy burdens, the distance in mothers, and this is really sad, right? Because mothers, we want to be connected to our children, but it distances us because of colonial views. So homophobia and patriarchy are really guiding the values of Marianismo, and that's going to be limiting. That's going to project a lot onto our children and our community that is not really them. It's our own colonization being mirrored. Rooted in scarcity. It's rooted in scarcity. It emphasizes status and materialism and creates feeling of never enough. Rooted in abandonment attachment, wounds due to immigration, vulnerability in relationships is difficult. It feels unsafe to be vulnerable. It might be taken from you. It might be squandered. It might be held against you to be vulnerable. Okay, so those are legacy burdens of Marianismo. So I might be cold or not share. The impulse to shrink. This one's really big. This impulse to have to be humble, to have to close up, to have to hide and not be seen. Consider that this legacy burden has been passed down to you through your abuelos, abuelas, your mother, your dad, your caregivers, to just disappear, to not be seen. Because think about it, maybe in our parents' generation, maybe it meant they would get in trouble with their parents, they would get beat, they would get punished. But maybe for their parents, so your grandparents or your great grandparents, it literally meant life or death to be seen, to show up, to not be humble, to be braggadocious. It could have meant death. So we have learned how to disappear, how to be humble, and it is in our DNA. And so think about that now when we're trying to show up as our authentic self and it feels hard and it feels like we're cased in. We have like a casting around our nervous system that's like, nope, no, shrink, stay this big, and it almost like poofs us back. And really just trying to see, oh my gosh, how has humility kept my people safe in the past, but also how is it keeping me small now? And how do I need to shake it off because it's no longer serving me? So the impulse to shrink or perform for safety is neurobiological in the energy body, our physical energy body. Okay. And there is fear of never being enough or never having enough. So this makes us have to perform or chase or do or juggle. And we're always going to be searching for that approval or that, wow, that celebration in others. And really it's telling us that we're connected and we're safe. And these are burdens because it tends to be taken advantage of. We tend to overperform or over deliver or be all for our productivity. And consider if that is actually doing us harm. And some of the legacy resources, let's get into that. Let's shift gears into some legacy resources. Okay, now, if you heard the burdens and you're like, gosh, yes, yes, I know someone that has all of that, let's look into the legacy resources, and maybe they're not calling them that. Maybe you're not calling them that. And we can actually practice what we talked about in burdens of like being humble. Maybe we could practice here with our legacy resources and saying, actually, I do have these gems and I need to, first of all, name it, claim it, label it as your power, your resource, right? What you are offering to your lineage as your legacy work. So thinking about it and how you walk, how you show up in it, how you pull it out when it's needed, and how can you feed it more? How could you embody these resources of Marianismo? Now, these are just a few. I totally invite you to write your own list, not even just a list of what your legacy resources are, but what other people who you admire, what are their legacy resources? And maybe you want to see how you would embody those resources. So one of them is shape-shifting capabilities, being able to read the room and have to, because we've had the legacy burden of having to serve everybody, of having to connect people, gather, we've become really good at shape-shifting our roles. We go from server to cook to nanny to housekeeper to businesswoman to bill payer. We are really exceptional at shape shifting. So always remember that it's going to come in clutch for you. It's going to come in clutch. So lean into that when you're feeling a burden. How can I shape shift right now for myself, for my spirit, for my inner child? Resourceful and creative with what is around and can whip up magic como si nada. Okay. So we are able to be resourceful in a very literal and figurative way. We go, okay, I got some yarn, I got some leaves, bundle that up, and we got a ceremony, right? I'm going to make up a fire because I know how to do that. We know how to use what we have and work with it and shift the energy. That is a really big deal. And I noticed that when I was thinking about it in this way, but I felt some kind of guilt. I go, oh my gosh, if I can do that, if I could use what's around me and change the energy for good, it kind of also helped me see the burden that I cause when I am in my low vibrational Marianismo. When I am in bad energy and I like snap at my kids without just like going away to check myself, to take a nap, now I'm also projecting that powerful energy onto them. And if it's bad energy, that's sticking with them. That's like putting my susto onto them, right? That is how powerful my energy is. So I want to be really, really intentional when I resource my creative energy. I want to make sure that it's in goodness. I want to whip it up como si nada, but in a beautiful flow. Grassroots energy and collective protectiveness by looking out for others and passing on vital information. Now, we're really good at keeping the tea hot, but like, oh, this is not for me to share. We're good at keeping space, holding space for our comadres, our community, being a safe place for people to go. And we're also good at sharing what needs to be shared with discernment, right? When we're in our highest self, with discernment to protect people. Thinking about in our lineage, who were those people that said, no, I don't care if I'm the black sheep. This is the truth and I'm going to speak it. So we have within us these grassroots energy that is an advocate, that is a truth teller, and we can harness that and we can pass on this vital information for others. We have crisis management skills that are rooted in ancestral wisdom. When we're like, oh my gosh, I know what to do. I feel like I need to drum. I need to dance. I need to go for a run. I need to jump in the ocean. I don't know why. I just have to. I feel like I'm losing my mind. I need to cut my hair. Consider that that might be your ancestral wisdom. Again, those epigenetics going, what's going on? What's going on? And our ancestors are like, I got this. And then it starts to percolate. It starts to do its business, right? Like coffee ready to like smoking out the top. Like, I know what to do. Consider that we have these beautiful resources that get us out of things. The other thing is we can transmute pain. Ooh, our epigenetics passes on sure, it passes on pain, but it also goes, I know what we did with this pain. And our epigenetic sends the cellular memory, the cellular code. It's like, I think of it like Morse code, like beep, 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 beep. And then we act out, right? So imagine we can transmute this pain into craft and create abundance from it. We do it all the time. We are so creative. When you like, think about when you've seen a woman say, I don't know how I'm gonna get these kids fed, but she gets it, right? She creates this meal out of her pantry. She comes up with a new way to sell something, or she makes up a beautiful piece of art after a divorce, after child loss. She is transmuting that pain into abundance, into craft, into artistry. And that is her way of passing it through. So remembering that our creativity is so important as a legacy resource. And the way we process could very well be through movement, dance, emotion, art. The ability to pivot and read the room. Okay, this is polyvagal toning. This is vagus nerve toning. This is our ability to be like, okay, because we've had to, right? As a burden of Marianismo, we've had to step in a room and go, okay, who else looks like me? Who else can identify with my experiences? Who might be here to harm me? Who is supporting me? What does my energy say about the people around me? What is my own energy? We are able to read the room and pivot, step into that shape shifting as we need to. Okay. And the other thing is our intuition. Don't forget, it's not just you. You have this intuition built in. Okay, it's not just your epigenetics, it's your connection to the land, it's your connection to the spirits around you, the energy field, your ecosystems. And when you are like in alignment, when you're in flow, that Marianismo can just, I picture you like walking on the grass barefoot, and every step you take is like, snap, like just getting, ooh, I get goosebumps, like just getting energized with each step you take, connecting to all of the vibration of the earth, all of what the earth is telling you from here. And every step you take is just lighting you up. And then everything above you, all the wind is just protecting you. So really, when we are in our highest self, when we are allowing ourselves to process, when we are not judging or rushing, we're just being curious with our Marianismo resources, we can find our intuition and our connection to the elements. And when I say the elements, I mean nature. I mean the four directions. I mean earth, air, wind, and fire, right? We can come back to being, oh my gosh, I return to this, and being in alignment with that intuition. Our resourcefulness and traditions of showing love as a resource. So maybe we were in our legacy burdens bag today. Okay, maybe we woke up tired, too much stimulation, too many sounds, and we yelled at our kids. I'm talking we as me, okay? And then I feel bad. And then I do that whole guilt thing. And then I'm like, oh my gosh. And I have to pull myself out of this cycle of Marianismo guilt that my epigenetics likes to go on. It likes to go, oh my gosh, you need to like over apologize, over deliver, over sacrifice now because you had an emotion. And if I can ground myself, come back to myself as human, as someone who also might have many needs. Did I eat? Did I drink water? Did I explain myself? Did I move my body? What do I need? But I can come back with my resourcefulness and my traditions of showing love, right? I can prepare a beautiful meal. I can sit with them and say, hey, I don't like the way this energy was in my body. It didn't feel good to say that to you. And I'm still feeling it. So I can imagine you are too. And I'm really sorry. That's not my intention. And can you forgive me? But I'm able to shift my traditions, whether I receive that or not. I'm able to go, this is the tradition because I am the mother and I am really standing in this. And if you're watching this and you're not a mother, this is for you too, because you've had a mother or you have a lack of some kind of lack of need from your mother, if you knew them or if you didn't, right? We all have a lack of something, some deeper than others. And some, we talk about it all the time. Yeah, I'm mad at my mom for this and I'm mad at my mom for that, right? And some of us never get to express that anger in their mother because they feel that they have to be beholden to them or forgiving of them. And so this is also something we can go, okay, I'm not a mother, but I feel these things. Yes, this is for you. Right? And how about the children of Marianistas? So if you are a male or you self-identify as a male, this is for you to see yourself as, wow, it's not that anything is wrong with me or that I need to stop crying or that it's feminine. It's that my mom was pushing on an agenda out of protection onto me. And that's not who I need to be. I need to love myself. If you identify as someone in the queer community, LGBTQ, and you've felt the real physical pain and unsafety, being unsafe around your own mother, I'm sorry. And that is, nobody should have to experience that. And yet I also think about the grief for the mother of like, wow, this is this divine child and they are really limiting their majestic flow as a mother by not loving all the essence of their child, of trying to change them into something that they're not born to be. They're supposed to be as they are, divine, queer, magical. And as a mother, for us to change them or shame them or try to hide who they are, I feel so bad for that parent that their legacy is small and really living in the burden of Marianismo. And they are missing a connection to part of themselves, which is their child. And if you are that child, I just want to say I'm so sorry. And also, I really do hope in learning about Marianismo, you can really work through your own Marianismo wounds, these mother wounds projected onto you that are now like your susto responses, you know? And I hope that you can find other Marianismo resources within you, because you do have them within you, inherited by you, but also maybe find other mother figures that can kind of reclaim that for you and really accept you as you are. And then working towards that connection with your inner child to re-parent them and go, you are wonderful. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that your mother was limited and couldn't see this beauty in you, but I love you and I will parent you. And you're exactly the child that I need. And then allowing your inner child to talk to them, to you like that. So just thinking about the beautiful resources we have and allowing ourselves to go, oh my gosh, I have power inherently and I am magical. So this is an invitation. This is an invitation to your Marianismo, to really kind of looking at what is mine, what is my Marianismo, what do I carry inside of me, what has been passed down to me, what starts to unlock in me that is my Marianismo, how have my epigenetics passed this on as a way to be a protector, and how can I let go of these things as they don't serve me now? So can you reflect on the energy of your Marianismo protectors as a burden? That's one way you can start thinking, okay, what is the energy? Is it defensive? Is it cold? Is it critical? Is it shaming? Does it feel guilty around pleasure? Right? And I would start writing it down just like, and then what would you like to let go of? What would you like to let go of? And if you're like, I can't, whoa, what would you like to let go of? We're creating this beautiful ecosystem where you get to just float in there. What would you let go of? Imagine your pain like dropping sandbags off the side of your hot air balloon as you expand. What heavy burdens would you get rid of? I'm curious. Aren't you curious? And lastly, what parts of your Marianismo are so strong and nurturing? What ways of being do you want to protect and strengthen? Not what ways of showing up or what ways of performing or producing. What ways of just being do you want to protect and strengthen? This is an important question because if we sit back and go, oh, this is the lineage I was dealt, we come from a lot of trauma, there was a lot of substance abuse or violence or betrayal, I hear you and you're not wrong and I get that. But that's really allowing our life to be led by this historical trauma, this intergenerational trauma. And when we reclaim it we are actually not being this little Virgin Mary that just takes the role that she's given. We are actually decolonizing ourselves and going, actually, I'm going to pull out my authentic self. And in that, we free the lineages 7 generations back. They're like, thank you. I've been trying to tell you I don't want to be like this anymore. It's that I had to. And we're also, just by our own energy changing, our epigenetics now strengthening towards joy and patience and grace, just by doing that, imagine, I am now an epigenetic change maker. I am now a generational healer because I'm going to show up vibrant. I'm going to show up more patient. I'm going to show up with a bigger bandwidth for tolerance. And then I start to raise my children with this grace. And even if I don't have children, if I'm a teacher, if I'm around children, I'm a bedside nurse, whatever, I'm a neighbor, right? We are going to be impacting those with our energy. So what ways do we want to protect and strengthen these little magical epigenetic cellular reminders of who we are? How can we pull those out and be like, I want to show up with this talent right here? And maybe it starts small and we like really just finesse it. And in communication with our ancestors, we go, what do you have to show for me? And then we create safety for our body to show us, for our energy to show us. Just an invitation, just a little thought. And really just thinking about it in closing, welcoming my Marianismo with awareness and compassion. What does that look like? What does it look like to welcome Marianismo with your awareness and compassion? So I created this visual. I'm a very visual person. I need to be able to see it. But I want you to consider Marianismo roots to blue. Okay, when I say this, thinking about a rose, and I'm going to tell you why I chose a rose, but thinking about when you see a beautiful red rose or a purple rose or a fragrant white rose, thinking about how good it smells, how it attracts you, how it calls you. But historically, roses are used on altars as protection. And roses are also what was found on the lining of the cloak of La Virgen de Guadalupe, the tale told to us to submit us to Catholicism, right? So roses were on the cloak of the Virgin Mary, again, talking about protection, but also this is an indigenous plant that has been used for love, softness, and protection. It's very important. So let's just think about how we are a rose and we have this beautiful rosebud that is us and our experience and how we show up, right? But what is beneath that rose? So I want us to think about it in the terms of intergenerational, so crossing generations from one to the next to the next. Intergenerational transmission, crossing generations of legacy burdens, right? Things that we've had to carry in our lineage, whether we know them or not, subconscious or conscious, and we're going to get to that. And our legacy resources, things that we have inherited that are helpful or good for us, okay? That we carry with us. So we're going to start at the roots because that's where we start, right? At the root of who we are or the behavior. So looking at the roots of Marianismo, we start on the right. And on the roots, we see that Marianismo, the term, the value, the behavior, the role, is rooted in, and this is what makes it so specific and, feelable, but it's rooted in Spanish colonization. So maybe, your Filipino friend can relate to this, right? Marianismo, Filipinos, yes, colonized by Spanish. It's a lot of Catholicism, right? So it's specifically rooted in Spanish colonization. It's rooted in patriarchy. The men are to serve God and the woman is to serve the man. She's there to chase the man, to make sure he's fed, he's safe, the children are tended to. It is specifically really patriarchy led, centered. And this is how they created machismo and Marianismo, right? That's like a skewed version of it, a hyper elevated version of patriarchy, machismo and Marianismo. So it's rooted in this, which is very limiting, right? And can often have violence or fear. Also white supremacy. Oh, I'm sorry. Catholicism. It's rooted in Catholicism, which if you've grown up in Catholicism and you have, positive experiences, that's great. And yet what has happened historically to indigenous communities that had to either die, be separated from their family, or be separated from their own spirit, their true self, in the name of Catholicism. And also looking at how Catholicism has taken so many indigenous practices and intertwined them into Catholicism, the smoke, the plantitas, right? The four directions, the way that we do certain traditions, the skewing of it, taking, borrowing, renaming, restoring. And now we are kind of confused about what is ours, but also Catholicism shaming, labeling anything other than worshiping Jesus. So if we're doing meditation, or we want to do oracle or tarot cards, we want to go see a shaman, we want to do an ayahuasca, we feel, oh my gosh, I am going to be such a bad person because I want to try plant medicine. This is this epigenetic root rooted in Catholicism and very much the Inquisition, right? Genocide of, if you're not Catholic, you could very well have been killed 7 generations ago. So it's rooted in this commitment to Catholicism. So it's going to show up. It's going to show up. White supremacy. This is very much noted as the Spanish had a caste system. Not only did they bring over on their ships enslaved Africans from different parts of Africa or the Caribbean or the islands, right? And they created a caste system of who was deemed worthy. And at the top were the white Europeans, the Spanish. And even within the Spanish, there were different castes. So there was white, and nobility. Then there was the people that worked for nobility. Then there was, people of and it went all the way down skin color. Then it was indigenous people and Africans. And it was really rooted in their skin color. The darker the skin color, the lower you were. Like you couldn't even have a chance. That is white supremacy. That is something that has been ingrained since that colonial violence. And it has been really, see, the roots are in the mud. It's been muddied. It's been intertangled in now how our root belief system goes. And it's not right. It is colonization. That's all. We think it's like the right way to do things, but it's actually oppression, right? And it's rooted in the colonization, the colonizer being able to overpower a group of people just like that by these rules, these arbitrary rules that benefit them, the oppressor, right? So the last two things, indigenous and African enslavement and oppression. Absolutely, this was happening. There was even, where my family's from is the pueblo of Mani in Yucatan. And you can look it up, Google it. And the first thing you'll find is that Mani is a magical pueblo town, Mani. And they deemed it a magical pueblo town. But what I found is, oh my gosh, this is why I am so determined to talk about Marianismo. This is my lineage work. This is my legacy work. And here's why. The town of Mani is the first town where the Spanish came to Yucatan to colonize. So they entered through Campeche, which my family has a big history in Campeche. They entered through the beaches of Campeche, went through the jungles, the Mayan jungles, to Mani, which was this small pueblo town of indigenous Yucatec Mayan people living on the land, barefoot, beautiful homes made of sticks and leaves, banana tree leaves. And they were genocided. Over 80% of indigenous people were either killed or they were given illnesses. Illness wiped out 60%, and then then it just started growing with violence and genocide. And so in this town of Mani, they built their first Catholic church, and it's huge. And this is now celebrated as the first church, and people go there to have weddings and baptisms. But really, if you read the history and really see it from the side of the oppressed, this church in Mani was the first site of an inquisition. So basically, you went to this church and you either say, yes, I'm Catholic now, I know I'm going to give up all my indigenous practices, and please baptize me. And then they would baptize you, and you would be like a servant of the church, because you're still an indigenous person. You're not going to just be like raised, but you'd be like some kind of servant of the church, and you would be like, okay, now you get to live. And the Spanish would feel like, okay, we're going to raise them to be a person of God. We saved them, these savages, right? Which is wrong. Or you were an ancestor that said, no, I'm not going to let this happen to me, and I'd rather be dead. And then they killed them here in Mani. And recently I discovered that my lineages go back all the way to the 1600s. I couldn't find more, but I imagine that it was there at the 1500s. You just can't find it but as far back as the 1600s in Mani, Yucatan. And I just couldn't believe it. I sat there in tears when the genealogist told me. And I was like, this makes so much sense. My people are from this history of genocide. That's why it bothers me. That's why my epigenetics gets so angry when I see it happening. I know it in my bones, but I couldn't make sense of it because I don't, I'm not living that in my immediate ecosystem now. But it didn't make sense. And now I see it. And actually, Mani is one of the sites where they burned the codices, the Mayan codices, the books that they had. They burned them at that church. Can you imagine the sacred rage and grief that people of that village carry? And the also, if it's genocide, also the roots of having to not show up how you really are, and knowing, okay, well, they just burned my whole family's lineage books. Half my family was killed. I'm just going to be who they say I am. And that is like a really big rooted stance in how we're going to show up. And everything else is growing based on that root, right? So moving to the left, now that we know like this is what it's rooted in, consider the root feelings. So what feelings might this create? Now, mind you, there's a whole bunch of feelings. Please write them down that come up for you. But I imagine fear, which fear just is so many feelings, but fear, shame, disgust, control, and longing. Fear, shame, disgust, control, and longing. And I'm sure you have other feelings, and I welcome them. I didn't write rage on there. Rage should absolutely be on there. But I feel like rage is fear. And when we rage, it's coming from a place of fear. And the fear hasn't been able to express itself or speak up for itself. So it's rage. It's sacred rage. And I feel that grief, our sacred grief, is fear and shame and disgust. And so when we talk about sacred rage or sacred grief or this sacred work, thinking about when we talk about it as sacred, we are actually touching down on the roots, the root feeling or the root action of something. Kind of changes it, doesn't it? And going to the right again with the leaves. So when we think about our legacy resources, now I want you to think about the roots showing us things that we have carried. So just like a plant has photosynthesis and a plant has plant cells that send the nutrients, the energy to different parts of the plant as it needs it, I want you to think about the root, who I have always been, or who my ancestors, the DNA that they gave me in my brainstem that carries 7 generations on each side. This root is now activated and it's going to guide me. So I have legacy resources, and these are our leaves, right? These touch the sun. These are like, ooh, remind me, sun energy, of all the goodness that I am. And these are our gifts, my ability to be in flow, my connection to water, my rhythm and movement, my ability to gather people, my softness with my children when I'm in love. And also, this is how I get into my parasympathetic. I know it. my resource, my epigenetic resource is trying to say, hey, do these things and you'll feel better. And so it gets me to parasympathetic, which is calm, which is confident and able to handle the situation. And think about if we're a rose, we also got those thorns. And what do thorns do? They're protecting, right? They protect the rose that is still growing, the rose that has a job to do, which is bud, to create more life for bees, right? To let bees pollinate, and then the bees go do their thing. They're part of an ecosystem, and the thorns are part of it to protect. So thinking about our thorns as another epigenetic gift that we've gotten from our ancestors in the form of our DNA, in the form of our epigenetics. These are now thorns. And I'm not saying that these are bad. I said that these are thorns. But these could also look like the legacy burdens we have to carry, how I have to act, how quiet I have to be, how I have to be productive, how I feel guilty being in rest, right? How guilty I feel. This gets me quickly into a sympathetic or dorsal mode. I got to fight or flight now. I got to freeze. I can't speak. This is a thorn trying to protect me, trying to like throw me some nutrients to a situation that helped in the past. It's not good or bad. It was something that an ancestor that my DNA knows as a survival from these root feelings. I don't want to feel this. Do these thorns. Protect ourselves. Protect this discomfort. And I can thank you so much to these protectors. Thank you for the way that you avoided that, because I know that you feared it. And also, if it's not serving me, teasing it out and going, I see that this is something I needed to react in, but this isn't serving me and I don't need to carry this moving forward. And just noticing when the thorns show up for you, when the protectors go, no, 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 don't do that. And seeing now, is that a rational thought that I'm having? Or is this a response from my root fear, from my historically colonized body? And what sends the message of how we're going to be, right? We have two options. And these, by the way, they both vary how we use them on our nervous system and our capacity that day, moment to moment. So if we've had a day where we're overstimulated, we had our supervisor just make us feel bad, we are short on time, we haven't had rest, we haven't had a good meal, we're probably going to lean into our thorns. Like, I can't handle this too much. But if we allow ourselves to go on a walk, take a nap, limit the people that make us feel, triggered or like overactive, then maybe we have time to let the sun hit our leaves, our legacy resources. So I want you to think like they're not good or bad. It's just, where am I acting from now? And mind you, thorns come in handy for protection when needed. It's just that we don't want to be all thorns. Right? If we cut off all the leaves, it wouldn't get any sunshine and it wouldn't be able to, do the photosynthesis. But if we didn't have the thorns, the beautiful stem wouldn't be protected. It gives it the firmness, right? The structure. So it's a balance, that duality of Marianismo. And then what sends the energy or the information or the action of what we're doing? Well, this is polyvagal toning. This is our vagus nerve. This is the stem. See the stem right there? But it's our epigenetics. I say this is what makes you a change maker, going, whoa, I almost got caught up in my thorns. Let me take a moment. Let me go dance to my favorite song. Let me go cry. Let me go take a shower. Let me go yell into a hole and pass up different epigenetics. This is where I can change the course. This is my epigenetic flow. I'm going to transmute how I want to go and hurt something to, I'm going to use this anger and rage and I'm going to stomp it out to some drums. I'm going to draw it out. And now I am in my epigenetic flow. Now I'm reaching a different part of my ancestral magic. And I might physically feel in flow. I might energy feel in flow where I feel lighter. I feel like almost like carried. I feel like a buzz around me. I might feel in my epigenetic flow with the elements where nature is like talking to me. And I'm like feeling like I'm just, being almost put back together by the wind and the trees and the soil beneath me. So epigenetic flow is just specific to you and what that feels like. Maybe you're dancing while cooking and you're singing a song while cooking and your food comes out delicioso, so good. And you're like, why? I actually didn't even have all the ingredients. It's you. You put that epigenetic flow in. You were the change maker that made that food delicious. Do you see? It's your sazon. And so we allow ourselves to bring up the epigenetic change that we want to be. And then we get to see our blossom, our beautiful rosebud. And I want to remind you about a rose. Have you seen a rose at night? Have you seen it early in the morning? It closes up. It knows what to do. It knows when to protect itself. Naturally, it can still be soft, but it still has the memory of those thorns saying, hey, now's not the time. It's dark and cold out here. And it can still close up. But when the sun's out and it feels safe, because safety is the key, right? It expands and it blossoms and it shows you all its colors, its beautiful layers of petals, right? It welcomes animals to it. It has a scent, a fragrance. It has this zesty color, just all its own. It has like a funky name, a cool, funny name to remember. So what are our petals? Our petals are us, how we show up, how all of this work from the root to my bloom, how it looks to others. This looks like me in my Marianismo magic, my bloom. I've blossomed into who I want to be, right? And so I'm showing you my petals, but this looks like blooming. This looks like abundance, meaning I have multiple streams of joy. I am picking up different hobbies. I'm trying different things for myself. I am not guilting myself. I'm allowing abundance. I'm allowing abundance of people helping me, receiving care, asking for assistance, right? I am in my essence. People might say I'm glowing because I'm in my essence. I'm really just showing people the way I do things without worrying about their approval because I delight in myself. And then I have my intuition on 10. My intuition is telling me who I am, how I can show up, and it's unlocking more within me. And I'm trusting it. I'm letting it guide me. So then it's like, okay, an open channel, an open portal. This is also going to give me softness. If you ever feel like, oh, I don't know how to be soft because I wasn't raised in softness. Oh, but you can unlock softness from maybe memories that you've blocked or even ancestral memories of softness in your lineage in different ways. And then when you start to feel yourself being in your own softness, you alone get the joy of going, oh my gosh, this is me. This is actually who I am. I am capable of softening, and it's going to feel so beautiful because it's of your making. You did it. So it's going to feel like you are feeling the embodiment of you as your own lineage change maker. I know it's possible because we all started as divine inner children that were just full of honey and joy and purity, and it was dampened, but we can get back to that. And when we soften, we tend to see ourselves giving ourselves grace, giving our inner child grace, giving different parts of ourselves grace. And then maybe that helps you in your interpersonal relationships, giving other people grace for the things that they didn't know or how they show up. Maybe it gives you grace for your ancestors or your parents. And it doesn't always have to. But maybe when you give yourself grace, it allows you to see others and give grace. And the last one I like to say is resilience. And some people get mad at the word resilience. And hey, I get you. Okay, this word I was like, but I want to say resilience because we are resilient. Look at what we started with talking about. We started about the roots. We talked about genocide, which we are feeling now, and it's like really hard for us to stay rooted, right? And yet we are here. We're still here, and it's making us resilient. And I don't mean resilient like we have to withstand pain. I mean resilient enough to root when times are hard and to still grow ourselves and our softness regardless of our environment and create new environments, ecosystems, to build safe spaces for ourselves and bring others along. That is our resilience. So I hope you can see yourself in your Marianismo roots to bloom, or even just let yourself take time and find your own journey, your own way of doing it. And I want to thank you for this moment shared together as really seeing ourselves as a legacy resource. I have more offerings on my website, rootedinreflection.org. I'm also available for speaking engagements. And I have a podcast you can find anywhere. It's a free resource called Confetti All Around. I hope to hear from you soon.